Hey, folks! It's great to be back again, and this is going to be an interesting episode. A lot of times, JavaScript gets blamed for weirdness and so on, and there are quirks and there are crazy things that are part of JavaScript. But I think we've gotten way past the time of blaming it for everything that's wrong with the world. There's a lot that it does. There's a lot of the internet that runs on it. MeteorJS runs on it. And I think it's fine. You just have to learn those quirks, and we're going to discover some of those today. Interesting things with numbers. We're gonna look at that. But this, by the way, is episode 103 of This Week in MeteorJS, a weekly newscast of the MeteorJS Dispatches podcast. My name is Alim Gafar, coming to you live from New York City. My eyes are going all over except for the camera. And with me today is our friend from the Czech Republic. So,
hello, everybody. My name is Dvorak, aka Storyteller, coming to you live from Czechia in a bit of a special setup, but maybe that's something at the end if there are people interested.
Yeah, kind of noticed that there is this weird. We have two Jans in the thing, one that you see and one that you don't. And we'll chat about that probably a little bit later when we talk about our frustrations with technology. But in the meantime, as always, we'll get started with the news. Jan, take it away.
So today, supposedly, is the last day that you can take the State of JS, which is a State of Survey series, probably the one I think that got it started. So do take the survey, scan the QR code, follow the link. Make sure to put in Meteor for frameworks that you use. It's a very insightful survey. You can learn about all the new stuff and quirks that are happening within JavaScript, and your voice helps, I would say, the wider ecosystem to kind of realize where we are at, and you can also vent all your frustrations or happiness with JavaScript as well.
Yeah. Here's a little inside. We just don't want MeteorJS to be the forgotten JavaScript platform out there. So it's one of those things where we don't want MeteorJS to be like the Staten Island of JavaScript. So anyway, all right, that's my own nutty take on things. By the way, if you are enjoying the time that you spend here and the work that we do to put these bits of news and share these insights with you, hit the like button. Let us know that you appreciate the work that we're doing so that we're motivated to continue doing it again and again. And with that, I'm going to get back to Jan because he's got a lot to say today.
So, not sure about how much I have to say, but Storybook 10 has been recently released. So it's the 10th, and they have this big thing about how they reduce their bundle and all the other improvements and integration, including svelte async component support. It's if you don't know, Storybook comes also from Meteor. Historically, it was initially written by Arunoda, who was at that time a big community contributor, and it came from let's say a demo or a project that the Meteor team was doing, and those team members who did that created a company that is now kind of building on top of Storybook for internal testing and a lot of other stuff. So that's kind of where this connection is, and it's also great for your component libraries to kind of help designers and newbies to your project to find out what components are available, and also for testing, increasingly so. They have been working on that. But in theme of today's episode, they've kind of moved to or part of the reason why they were able to have so much reduction was because they moved to ESM only. So that allowed them to kind of shed a lot of the weight, so they don't have to support common modules from Node.js. So they have only one style of importing, exporting, and So that's what reduced them. And they have, if you follow on the blog, they kind of show how there was originally the huge big structure, very complex, and how it became smaller and smaller over time, partially thanks to ESM. So things have gotten better over the years.
So they're really kind of shedding that historic baggage.
Yeah. Well, it's still, even to this day, and it's also something we are struggling a little bit in Meteor itself, but that will change with Meteor 3.4.
Okay.
Is that some of the types of the import export, especially if it's in the npm, where there you can define exports there.
Yeah.
That's what Meteor does not support currently, but next release it will be. So with ESM, it's there was originally if you remember back in the days, require and which is mostly Node standard. So that was the common JS using the requires, and then it moved to the import export syntax and ESM. That's kind of the main thing. So that's ECMAScript modules, if I remember correctly. And yeah, that allows the import export and all the other new stuff. So before you had to, or still, if you support the older versions, you have to kind of do the common JS
Yes.
exports and bundling, and then you do the ESM and anything else. So moving to just one is reduces the complexity and all the toolkit complexity as well, to make sure
Yeah.
that you have the proper release.
I
So
would love to
that's
see an article or somebody doing a presentation, a coherent explanation of the evolution of how we include files,
yeah.
from the start to where we are now. Because for two reasons. One is I think it would have some kind of forensic value. So if you inherit an older project and it is doing inclusions in a way that you're just not familiar with, you could understand, how it works and why it works that way. I just think that this is one of those things where there's been so much evolution that it would require it would benefit from a good story.
Absolutely, and like, even to explain today's, because even
Yeah.
I am sometimes struggling with all of these, and that's maybe partially because I'm kind of still just like very much focused on the Meteor ecosystem. So
Yep.
I don't say follow as closely some of the other issues, especially since they are things that I cannot really impact that much in Meteor. So, but that's going to change.
Yeah. Speaking of variety and so on, Meteor over the years, MeteorJS over the years has picked up a number of different front ends frameworks. It started with Blaze. React became the big driver. It still is. First class citizen today, I would say, in terms of display technologies for your Meteor applications. But now we support Vue and Svelte and Solid, and it supports the 10 stack now too. Is that official or not yet?
Not sure.
Okay. But in any case, there are a number of them that are supported. Now, it's kind of curious always to figure out, how do they perform relative to each other. And there's this article that was written by Lauren Stewart, where he built 10 Kanban boards using a variety of different front ends, because he was checking out like the mobile performance of these different front ends. And it's an interesting article. I think it's worth reading for two reasons. One is, he focuses on mobile experience more than anything else, and he said pretty much with all of them, the what is that metric? First time to paint is a really low number for all of them, so they perform pretty well. But one of the things that is really, really one of the metrics that he looked at was the bundle size from these different tools, and he's got that in there. Now, I think if somebody were to take this and say, hey, I would like to do a comparison among the different frameworks, front-end frameworks that are being used with MeteorJS, to see their performance metrics, their their size metrics, things like that. They could use this article as a jumping off point to designing their own test, and sharing that with the community, I think, would be tremendously beneficial. So, as a side note, I just want to say that although React is the big dog in the field, he does say that we should, as engineers, look at other opportunities with some of the newer frameworks out there. And he notes that, from his perspective, SvelteKit had the best overall developer experience. And there are others that he point out that, they result in really tiny bundle sizes and have some additional benefits in terms of how quickly they render on the screen. So take a look at it, because I think that can be useful. It's transferable, the information. But I think what's even more interesting, and I could see somebody like, and I don't think it should always be Lori from from Finland, who is always doing these kinds of tests and so on. But I think somebody else should probably pick it up and give it a try and see how this works in the MeteorJS world. I think it'll be a great article, or a great report, and very, very useful. And also, it could be a great evaluation tool for people that are trying to figure out whether or not they should join us and hop onto the MeteorJS bandwagon. So that is my thoughts on that. Do you have anything that you want to bring up with regard to this? Anything that I brought up that might interest you?
I'm looking constantly how Solid is performing in these, because that's something I'm looking at closely. So
sure,
definitely it seems to have advantage here over the React stacks.
Yes,
as well. I haven't heard of Marco, which seemed to perform like kind of the best.
Yeah.
But that kind of makes me also wonder if it is the thing that I'm what I need for my own work and applications.
Mm-hmm.
I know of Quick, but it's interesting.
We talked about that a few times last year, I think.
Yeah. That also kind of this kind of, I should say it, this kind of a project reminds me of in the past.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually no, I think there still is, and I think there might be multiple of them, where they have a specification for an application, what it should be doing, and then people can submit PRs with sample implementation in different languages and different frameworks. So if anybody knows about those, I had one of them.
I think that was like the standard to do app, right?
I think no, it was I think a bit more complex. But there might, as I say, there might be multiple of them. But the one I'm specifically thinking, I think it was a bit more complex, where you had to kind of showcase the user authentication and all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anybody can remember it, let me know in the comments, or if you know of these, let me know in the comments, because I might be interested in getting things sorted out for Meteor as well in this. So
Yeah. So, Jan, I'm just replacing this for a second, but this was the one that I remember that that we've seen time and again. It's the to-do MVC, and it shows it with a bunch of different types of frameworks. And I'm going to bring you back in because I threw you out by doing this, and so let me drop that back out. I apologize, but
no worries.
Yeah. So I think that's the one that we've been most familiar with, was this to-do MVC. There's, I think, another one of these that I've seen, but you think that there's a more complex.
Yeah, I think there might be a bit more complex ones but I might be mistaken because I was just looking at it on GitHub, not on their official site. So my memory might be skewed. But anyway, if anybody remembers, let us know in the comments, or if you find any other, let us know in the comments, and
Yeah.
we can have a hackathon at some point to make these in Meteor.
Hackathons can be good. Hackathons can be good. All right, so let me pull back here a second again, and we are going on to the next item here.
Yes, so this is an article that has been making some rounds about why developers are leaving Next.js for 10 stack start. And I think it's probably the time of the year again where there is hype about some new framework and people moving to that. 10 stack start would qualify for that and has, I would say, a pretty good chance because it's not 10 stack itself started from JS query and kind of grew into much more encompassing set of tools. So now when it came with its own framework that does a lot more, then people are much more interested, and that might also partially be because Next.js has become a bit more bloated, and a lot of people like myself feel that it's Vercel and Next.js is pretty much the same thing. And there's also some I've read also other opinions that a lot of the stuff that people hype about Next is actually Vercel features. So some other things that people said, or in this article, what it says is that why people prefer it, that it's less magic, more control, which to me it sounds kind of interesting because in a way with Meteor it seems to be at least like a lot of magic in the wow effect. Another thing is, which I very much like, is supposedly it feels closer to React, which if I think about it, there has been recently, and again on the Next.js conference, they have these, what is it, use workflow or something like that. They've added new directives, which is a bit controversial, but they seem to be closer to Vercel, not really to React and Next. But it's kind of all integrated, which is one of the problems. Another thing is that supposedly a smoother developer experience, which might come, I think, to the, as I think that the Next.js has kind of bubbled up to being this big thing, and now kind of trying to reel it in can be problematic. And as I said, the connection between Next and Vercel, if you go to something else that doesn't have anything tied to it like that, then people feel, and it's kind of more out of the box, that you have more flexible hosting and tooling in that regard. So I think that it's an interesting thing. There is much more, and it kind of also makes me wonder that we've seen these migration, especially 10 years ago. It has been a crazy time where it was like every month something new. Thankfully, that has slowed down. So that's kind of where I'll leave it at. Check it out. Check out the what they think, and let us know what you think where this is going.
Yeah, I think there's a point that these make, which is when, and I'm generalizing now, right? Like when these frameworks start getting a little more complex, it suits certain users, but for a lot of other users, that complexity now makes it really a burden to use, and they look for something else. So you constantly hear this thing where people are saying that they're looking for simplicity, right? And they came to it at the beginning because it was simple and it was just easy to use and get there. So I think it's an interesting observation, and which is probably why people will keep jumping to the next new thing, because they usually start out really streamlined and then they start adding in the edge cases afterwards.
Yeah.
And then that becomes a little more complicated to use. So it's a delicate balance, I think, to be able to run with with a set of tooling that meets both needs. I don't think anybody's been very successful with it yet.
No, well, it's usually like the more edge cases, that means requires more specific configuration.
Yeah.
And like even with Meteor, but I think with Meteor we do it pretty well because we kind of keep the default.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to change it, you change it in the in the settings file or wherever. But it's not like we are adding more boilerplate that you need to do. That has the only like big change like that has been with the await async
Yeah.
migration, but it has not really been as a reaction, you could say, to the edge case. So I think in Meteor we are still pretty solid
Mm-hmm.
on this, and trying to kind of keep things working fine out of the box and simple. But sometimes, especially I would say with React and also like with the front end stuff, and once you start kind of mixing that more closely together, then you get into this problem that you kind of need to kind of look at something and say, okay, we need to completely rewrite these things so that we can accommodate the new pattern, or these edge cases. And routers are in this quite a big one. So, kind of surprised how much there has been development and work around the routers, which you would think would be quite simple, but once you get into kind of mixing to their client and server, that's where it gets crazy.
Yeah, I think we could talk about this more. I don't want to do that because we've got other things that are on the plate now. But let's I think, by the way, over the last year or so, I mean, we've been seeing a lot of security issues with regard to upstream dependencies, and that still remains a problem. Recently, there was a story that I ran into with regard to a thing called a remote dynamic dependency NPM exploit. This is where NPM, excuse me, where people are uploading compromised, packages that downstream there are a number of different more popular packages that are, relatively well sanitized, they're using. And because of this sort of like, far remove, it creates an opening for problems. There was an article titled "NPM flooded with malicious packages." Let me get myself off the screen here so that we can see this better. Right? Downloaded more than 86,000 times. That really talks about this from Ars Technica. And the problem is when your dependencies themselves have compromised dependencies. I think I was just mentioning that before. Now, the thing is, how do you deal with this? It's a really hard thing. This is one of the things I mentioned as dependency hell. I don't coin that term. I'm not saying that I coined it, but it's certainly something that I've used before. And I think what's happening lately is that the teams are starting to realize that this is a problem. And in some cases, now we have native libraries that are part of the JavaScript core. And you want to go to the next slide? I think there's a link for it there, right?
Wait, no, that's
it. Yes,
dependency cruiser.
No, back up one, just one, back up. Yeah, so that's where it is. So it's that these native libraries are now implemented. These things that were typically external libraries before are now implemented as internal features of Node.js itself. So the recommendation is to move away from using these external libraries and to use these features. This article points out 15 of them that you can start using right now, things that you could change. I think one of them that they point out is well, never mind. I'm not going to try to remember it because it's not coming right off the top of my head right now. So this ensures that you're not using third-party packages for core behavior. And there is yet another thing that you can use, which is the dependency cruiser, which is that link to the GitHub repo that you were looking at before. And this tool actually will take a look at your dependencies and visualize them for you so you can have a better sense of what your application is using. Now, it doesn't necessarily solve the problem in an automated way, but it does give you more insight into what your dependency trees look like. And I think that can be a rather useful tool. But in some ways, doesn't this also, make the argument for swapping out your node runtime for something like Bernardino, which embeds a lot of these libraries directly in and supposedly are sanitized and secured? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Jan?
I have been recently kind of trying, or every time I try to reduce my dependencies, so having a good built-in libraries and Node is really good, but not always the silver, because a lot of the times right now how it is that these basic or like these built-in, for example, the Node test runner, or the other one which I was trying was the colors for the console. They might be lacking in features and edge cases and other, you could say, workarounds that a lot of these other libraries do. So it's not a silver bullet. It really depends on your use case. But I prefer that. And as to if it makes more case for Bun, that's a good one.
I mean, I think
I would say potentially
you're trying to reduce the opportunity, the attack surface opportunity, right, for compromise.
Yeah.
That's where I'm getting with this. If somebody also has eyes on these packages and have said, okay, we have confirmed that through our own testing, through our own procedures, that we have addressed vulnerabilities, and when you're using this runtime, you are going to have a much safer experience than something that's not looked at. I think it's in some ways trying to make that case. I don't know if it actually works in practice, but I think that's the thought behind it.
Yeah, I think it really depends, because it's a lot of you have to kind of weigh things, because if you have like one source that for this, then that one can be bigger. It can have established security practices rather than say 10 smaller teams or individuals. So from that's definitely a good one. Let's just put aside features, all that stuff. But the issue is then if that one source is compromised, then the entire thing is compromised as well. While with the other ones, you can have maybe smaller compromises that are not that big, and with these this large number of compromises and everything, it's been a year or two, maybe more, when I think a developer who was paid by Tidelift or something like that started putting his packages and all the other projects that he was doing so that he can get more money out of that. So it's that also plays into it. And again, why you should check your dependencies and if you need them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think we don't have a consensus yet, really, and I think that will also depend on how the open source security and funding story is going to evolve on this.
So, do you think this is a little bit like standing at the dike and the water's coming in, you stick your thumb in one, but now there's another hole someplace else that the leak happens? Is this?
I think that's the story of security.
Yeah,
that has been always the case, and constantly doing the onion security and different layers, and it's a constant fight, and whenever you try to relax a bit, that's usually when they get you. And I do recall a story. This is from a podcaster that I listened to, and that's going to go into more advanced, and he was working for, I think it was Vice back then, and then it started like the morning they came and everybody got an email that there has been a compromise to the password, then they need to reset password by clicking this link. And of course, it'd be like, the email then went, that's a phishing email, don't click that. And of course that was the correct one. And then there was another email which looked like it came from the CTO. It's like, for heaven's sake, people, we told you not to click on the phishing email. Now everybody needs to reset their password again. This is the link. It was like that was the good one that got people. So that kind of comes into it. It's not just necessarily all the systems you put in check, but as I always said, once they get access to your machine and all that stuff, then a lot of the security that you have built in just starts is useless. So it's an ongoing story.
So listen, I mean, you just have to be vigilant, check your dependencies, try to be aware of what's going on, and use tools that help you get clarity into your system.
Yep.
All right. Okay. We're going to stay at the back end.
Yes. Oh, actually, I think you have one more story here, Alim.
No, I'm saying we're staying at the back end, right? There's a story that you have. It's back end related. No?
Let's see. I think. No, sorry. Apologies. I think we have a mix-up here with.
That's where it is. Yes.
Yes. So, big of a mix-up here with that. So, as you were talking about the history and story, we do have a good channel that is working on documenting the history of all of these different frameworks and everything. They just recently changed their name to Cult Repo. And recently they've released their Vite, the documentary, which also has mention of Meteor.
Really?
And yes.
Wow.
Well, because the creator of Vite and Vue, Evan Yu, was working, or he had an internship in Google. Then he had internship in Meteor, and then he released Vue. So that's the story that, of course, gets mentioned there. So yeah, there it's a short, well, not short, it's like full feature, 40-minute documentary about the Vite, how it came to be, how it kind of evolved, why it evolved. And I think that's a great thing, because then you kind of, when you are wondering sometimes about some of the design decisions and languages and programs and so on, this documentary like this kind of puts it in perspective. It kind of shows what were the big events, what were the conferences, what was the ecosystem like. So it talks, for example, a lot about how they were kind of in competition with Snow and how that evolved. Or no, it wasn't Snow. It was something like that with Snow. I just forget what's the name of the competitor to Vite back when it started, and also kind of where it's heading. It's because this has been kind of finished around when they announced Void Zero, which is the company that will be building out Vite and related technologies. So it's very interesting. I would highly recommend it to everybody, so that you know who is who, why things happened, and learn some interesting things.
That'd be very cool to check out, and especially if this channel has other related stories that. So they kind of cover the history of the internet and the players in it and such.
I would say of the programming side of not necessarily, you don't like get a Apple documentary or Steve Wozniak documentary or anything like that, but modern technologies.
Yeah, so like Rust or they would have like a documentary on Rust, or they would have a documentary on Go or things like that.
So let me, they have, for example, documentary on Angular, on Python. Let me just quickly run through this here. So of course, they have interviews with other important story There was interview with Scott Dolinsky, of course. The story behind Node was another one. Ruby on Rails, which I still need to watch. So that's there. Interview with CEO of GitHub. So there's a lot of these things. Kubernetes, as I see here, and more. But
that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting. All right, really, really cool. Okay, listen. I don't know if you guys remember, but for a while, and I don't know how many of you use it, but I've used the Internet Archives quite a bit, especially the Wayback Machine. The Internet Archives is actually a little bigger than just the Wayback Machine, which is a catalog of websites and the different iterations they've gone through over the years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But not too long ago, they ran into some problems, and they were in really an existential moment for them. They were being sued by copyright holders for some of the stuff that they had on it. The good news is that that's now all over. It's over now. But what they had to do was they had to take some stuff down. And I was kind of curious about what this means. So there's an article out there. Again, I'm being a very bad producer here by not getting things lit up here properly. There's an article that talks about that the fight is over and they're now going forward, but the founder is a little upset. He thinks that, and I will quote, he says, "We survived, but we wiped out the library." I'm going to tell you a little bit about the open library in a second. There is a comment that he has on this that he said that he thinks the world became stupider when the open library was gutted. So this library that we're talking about is they not only were documenting changes to websites and so on and cataloging those, but they also had a library of books, ebooks, and music online. And they decided they were kind of like keeping an archive of that. And then at some point they decided they were going to lend it out. And they came up with a method to actually do some lending. And it got really, really popular during COVID when people were all home. And they wanted to read things or they wanted to listen to some stuff and they didn't want to pay for it. And they were doing really well with it. I think they said something like 1.4 million loans were made at the height of it during COVID. And some of these copyright holders were not happy with this and sued them. And the suits were to the point where they were expecting something upwards of $400 million in damages, which would have killed the archives. But now they've settled. They said that the Internet Archives was harming their commercial abilities, and so that's why they sued. But now it's been settled, and the folks over the Internet Archive said, "Look, nothing that we were doing was actually like taking money out of your pockets, but okay, whatever." But their feeling now is that because they had to remove, I think it was 500,000 books from the open library. There are still books in the open library. The feeling is that things have been dumbed down for the end users out there. So we've been talking about the enshittification of the internet for a while. This is a topic that our friend Küster is really, really interested in. And I think this goes to the notion, especially from the folks over at the Internet Archives. The founder's name is Brewster Colley. And I think you'd probably agree that this is, further eroding the value of the internet and creating more unnecessary friction and problems there. Maybe the enshittification is not the right term to use here because it's used in the context of design patterns, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of applications, but
applications and service provided, it could potentially apply, but I think this is really about the content of there, and it's tough with copyright. And one of the things I'm dealing with that almost daily with Literary
Yeah,
Universe,
literary universe. Yeah.
trying to figure out all those details when it
Hmm.
comes to copyright and everything, because there is a lot of could say gray zone or stuff that is ignored until
Yep.
you make money anywhere. So it's not easy. The copyright laws are
Yeah.
what they are, and a lot of the time, the creators, the authors don't really get
Hmm.
much of a compensation for
Sure.
various reasons,
Yeah.
piracy or going to Internet Archive. There is just a small part of that.
Yeah.
um, it's I think the issue with the copyright laws is going to come uh, really ahead, because there are countries that ignore intellectual property laws outright,
Mhm.
and AI as well
Well,
is
they're
an issue.
companies that do that too. You
Yeah,
know.
so uh, it's like even worse if companies do it with the blessing of the government, but that's
Yeah.
a different story. So it's an issue, and part of that is also, and I always give the example of Steam. It's part of it that is a distribution
Hmm.
issue, that a lot of the times it's very difficult to find what you want to read, or if you
Yeah.
look for specific books, or for example manga, anime, and it is not, a lot of the stuff, for example, is not available in my region at
Mhm.
all, and I have no other choice than piracy if I want to get it.
Sure.
uh, and so that's an issue. And what Steam did, Steam pretty much, really until recently,
Mhm.
really extremely limited and reduced piracy when it came to games, because it was one platform, you could find everything in there, and it
Okay.
was much more easier, to, because you just do one click, buy it, it will
Yeah.
download, it will install everything in the background. You have to really do anything. It's not that you have to go to a shop, buy a
Yeah.
the disk and put it in, then do the installation and all that stuff. Here it's like, like, if you have like automated things, it's just like 2 clicks pretty much,
Yeah.
and 3 to get to start the game. So that was like distribution issue. And plus, it was available everywhere for everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what regions you were. There was like no region locks. So that's something we are trying to do with Literary Universe as
Yeah.
well. But it's
So
not easy, copyright laws. But that's the big thing, and that's why archives like these are popular.
yeah, the archive I think is really really important. And for me, it's a place where I sometimes go and I scrape data. And for small scale things, like I might be practicing a technique or something like that. I need a good sample of something, and I go there. What I didn't realize was, and this was a surprise to me, is I had no idea that they had books
Yeah,
available, or music. Normally, like when I want to get things that are in the public domain, I'll go to the Gutenberg project and I'll scrape from there, because those things are all legally available. And so that's been my go-to in the past. So this was actually news to me, that they had books and they were lending books, and they had music, they were lending music. I mean, the COVID era was like 5 years ago now, right? Half a decade ago.
yeah,
I had no idea that they were doing this. So when I saw this story, the copyright part obviously is always going to be interesting to me, because I've been publishing for a number of years before I actually went into software. And I know it's interesting to you from the literary universe point of view. But what was more interesting to me is, what they were doing was just, taking snapshots of different websites and keeping an archive of it. But I had no idea that they had branched out into doing these other things, which has complicated, I guess,
yeah.
their
And
existence in some way.
it's not such as book. We know it, as you said, for the Wayback Machine. But I'm like
Mhm.
right now just looking through it, and there's, for example, a library of Microsoft DOS software
Okay.
here as well. So
Okay.
it's a lot of things,
Yeah.
and kind of related to games a little bit as well. because
Mhm.
there's also kind of a question, can we archive some of the older games, and how so that
Right.
they actually still run, because a lot of like especially the early games where you have like a specific hardware, that's
Right.
an ongoing issue, and that's my
Yeah,
alma
they're like
mater is
specific
working on
ROMs
that.
that you need. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the question of emulators, but that's a different different story, and you could probably spend an entire program on just that.
Yeah. So that was, I mean, look, by the way, Wikipedia, the Internet Archives, and so on, I think if we care about these things, we should try to support them to the degree that we can. So I'm going to bring that up as maybe an action item that all of us might consider. And if you have the means to do so, see what you can do to support them. But in the meantime, if you want to support us, you can subscribe, and to get notification as to when we get a new episode out, you hit that little bell. It's a notification button. Pop those two things, get it done, and we'd love to have you as part of our regular family here. And um, we'd appreciate that support. I got to tell you, this has been a really good set of conversations so far, but I'm kind of curious as to what's going on with the Meteor news lately.
Yeah, so let's head up
MeteorJS
to
news.
Meteor news. We don't really have, thankfully, that much, but we do have some news from Galaxy, and that is when it comes to databases support. So a while back, as you can probably see on the left side here, I just got to have it too close together. MongoDB was added, and we've reported on PostgreSQL and Redis being available as well, or that it's coming. So it's now available. And before it was that you have to write to them, and they would do their magic in the background to make that available to you. Now you can just click on the add button, and it will then show you. It will select what kind of database you want, what version, what type. For some it's limited, and then what account, if you have some discount codes, and what cluster, and then it will spin it up to you. It will provide you all access to a dashboard with the information, and of course all the connection strings you need for your Meteor or other applications. So I think the big, or not so like a big one, but it kind of shows you also the price that you can expect, and so it's available. Very very nice and straightforward. So yeah, that's kind of on that. And then I want to report on Node 22.21.1 and NPM 10.9.4 will be included in the Meteor 3.4. It has been approved, and I think it will be merged today or tomorrow. But one other thing that came to it is that Italo was confused that from my PR that I put in, that the tests don't pass, and there's like a strange error there. And then Nacho talked to, and that's what I want to talk to you about, with PRs that touch things outside of the packages directory, or especially when it comes to the scrapes and the internals of Meteor. You need to build a new dev bundle. So that's when you're developing locally, the local development is going to take care of that. Once you actually want to submit that, somebody from the Meteor software team needs to build that bundle so that it's available for the testing suite. And what it does, it takes all the internal dependencies, bundles them all together with all the other necessary code, and so that's kind of what you then download when you are installing Meteor, and that's where all the utilities, all the tools are located. So just wanted to do a bit of enlightenment on that. So if you are modifying something in the, say, even in the super core of Meteor, then this might be something required. You will have to request this from the Meteor software team, and it will probably take much longer for that PR to get approved because of this delay and because of the advanced scrutiny that this entitles, especially right now where there's a lot of work, you could say, in this area, especially for 3.4. So there is a limited bandwidth that the team can help you with this. So just to heads up on that.
I really hope that that Gabs maybe might put together a short blog post on this topic. You talked about it just now. There seems to be quite a it seems a little bit complicated and complex to me, so it'd be nice to have that hashed out properly so I understand better what the importance is. But that's all right. Gosh, what time is it now anyway? It's 10:28, so we've been doing this for almost an hour. And listen, I got to tell you something. There was an article that I read recently, Jan, that made me like wonder. First of all, like just the graphic from it was, I saw this thing that showed NAN is not equal to NAN, and I was like, what the hell is wrong with JavaScript, right? Which is sort of like why it's like we came up with the title for this week's episode as, JavaScript is not your problem. The problem is understanding JavaScript, and its behavior has been this way for a while. And it turns out, all right, it's worth reading this. This guy went down this rabbit hole of like, what the hell is happening here? It turns out like if you do a type of NaN, it actually comes back as number. So it should be a number. So if you're saying that we have a number, but it's not equal to itself, and that's a truthy thing, how does this work out? And he went down this big rabbit hole of looking and trying to figure this out. And it turns out, I mean, TDLR, right? Is it TD? What is it? No, it's not TDLR. Yeah, no, it is. It's like when you go all the way down to it, this is actually embedded in the hardware level of this altogether. So NaN, not a number, is actually an IEEE standard that was that came into being in 1985, so well before the creation of JavaScript. So when we take a look at this and we experience it, and we're like, fuck JavaScript, excuse my language, it just behaves like in such a weird way. What's this NaN? Like we have NaN, we have null. Like, why do we have this? By the way, NaN, evaluates to a number, but null evaluates to an object. So we've got some kind of weird things going on here. And this is not the only behavior that we've seen with this. For instance, if you do, array, like if you take an empty array and you do an equality check against it, it comes out as false, right? But if you do an equality check not against not an empty array, it becomes true. And so there are these behaviors that are in JavaScript that are very confusing. There are a couple of resources that actually go into why they behave that way. We don't have a link to it, but Dennis Donovan has a list of some of these quirks at his GitHub, and I'll put it into the comments at some point so that you have access to the link there. But the thing is, NaN shows up in the C math library, the math.h file. It shows up there, and it behaves exactly the same as in JavaScript. And then when you decompile it down to assembly, it behaves the same way. So this guy went, and in this article, he concluded, based on what he saw, that this is actually embedded behavior in the hardware. And it's not a JavaScript, it's not an abstraction layer. It's not a JavaScript abstraction only. So this is, don't blame JavaScript for some of these behaviors. But you can, you can look at some of these other things and say, what the, WTF, right? Like, what the hell's going on? I think the best way to educate yourself on this is to, and this is let me see what's the author's name here. I can't quite make it out there. It's too small. The author's name of this article is it Zuricki? Is that how you pronounce the name?
Let me double check.
It's
Polish.
Yeah.
Oh, I have it blocked.
It's Peter. Peter Zuricki. So
Zaritsky would be more
Peter
closer.
Zuricki. Yeah. So listen, I love these sort of deep dives in that get into the details of like how these things work, and somebody that's decided that they're going to go down the rabbit hole and then really clearly explain what it is that they discovered. This is worth reading, worth looking at. The next time you're playing with NAN and you get really ticked off at JavaScript, it's not JavaScript, right? This is NAN's behavior from the spec. This is how it works, and it's embedded at the hardware level. So when it comes to NAN, stop freaking out. You can freak out about other things with JavaScript, but in this case, it is not JavaScript. Okay? So I just wanted to share that with you because I thought this was kind of like really cool and interesting. And it led me down my rabbit hole to find Dennis Dovin's list of quirks and see his explanation as to how these different behaviors, like I said, with the, empty array inequality, like how that actually evaluates and how it gets down to that. It's too much to go into right now here. I don't think we should. But I think if you're kind of interested in some of these behaviors, it's worth going and taking a look at. And I remember there was a book called JavaScript, the something parts. I forget what it was called, but many years ago there was a book that kind of went into some of these things also, kind of give you a little more education about what goes on with JavaScript. So sometimes the behavior is exactly how it is intended. You just have to understand why it works that way. So give it a shot, take a look. And did this frustrate you more when
I had something? Yes, and here it is, the precision of 0.1 plus 0.2.
Oh God.
Actually, no, it's not even that, but it was like with numbers, and the issue was, with floats that, yes, it's like, if you do 0.1 plus 0.2, then it goes, it's like 0.3000004 for some reason.
Yeah.
And there is actually
not the value, right? It's not the simple
it's a floating
value. There's like a little bit
point
of
math. There is a website for it that if you do that 0.com, and if you do that, it will give you the explanation. It's also in there, and I've run into this bug in.
But these kinds of things are like really. These kinds of things are really maddening for like currency, arithmetic.
That's where I run into it.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where you kind of need a currency type to overcome this. But in any case, fun stuff with with sort of like the internals of JavaScript. But it's read this article by Paul Zaritsky, and I hope you get something out of it. Okay, and Jan, what's the next thing that we've got here?
So we've already, let me double check here. So
we got some shout outs, right?
Yes, shout outs. We already covered one of them, so I'll skip that
right.
one. But we do have here from, I think it's just from you, if I remember correctly.
Hang on one second. Let me see this. So here's the thing, right? I'm going to be, we talk about these guides and so on. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to try out some of them to see just how useful they are, because we talk about it, we read it, then we give you back the information about it. But over the next couple of weeks, there are two guides that I've run into. One is If I Had to Learn JavaScript Again, the real journey from 2017 to today. So is that one of them? Is that the article?
This one. Yeah, this is the correct one.
Yeah. So I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to take his recommendation on how he would learn JavaScript again, and see just how much I get out of it, and then what's left off the table. And then I'm going to expand to the React side. I know it's unbelievable that I'm going to try to touch React again.
Go for a solid.
But there's Oluwatobi Safela's article. He's got the React Handbook for Beginners, which is on JSX, hooks, and rendering explained. And it's done for what is this thing called? Free Code Camp, right? So I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to see, how good this is, how well it explains it, and whether or not I change my mind about React after this. And so in the next 2 weeks or so, I'm going to be working with these 2 guides, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to share my experience with you on them, and whether or not it was worthwhile, and am I a reconvert to React, or am I still going to be spitting it out of my mouth every time I say the word? So we'll get to see how that is. So that's my thought with that.
Interesting. Yeah,
and
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so that'll be my activity over the next couple of weeks. We'll, keep me honest every time we talk about it. Every time we talk, that I'm working towards that. I just want to mention, by the way, that one of the sponsors for this show is Literary Universe. I don't know if we have a Literary Universe sponsorship thing here.
Just like that on
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I think you should take advantage of explaining what Literary Universe is and why folks might want to try it. But let's do that another time. Yep. And you might recognize, by the way, that we've been running a what do they call that? A ticker at the bottom about the episodes from Impact. I shouldn't say the episodes, but the sessions from Impact that happened about, what is it now, a month ago?
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually more than
so
that.
if you did not make it to MeteorJS Impact and you want to see what's going on, well, pretty much every week until about Christmas, Jan has been releasing the sessions on a weekly basis. So that tiny URL link down there that you see will take you to the playlist. That'll give you a chance to watch those episodes. Very informative, really useful information on implementations with MeteorJS, how to get better with using it. I think we have a talk on internals over there also. So it's worth a watch. I would give it a shot if you haven't had a chance to do so. We'll keep on running this ticker probably through January, I guess, and then it'll come off at some point. But I think that's it for the show. Is there anything else you want to add?
No. Check out Literary Universe. Check out what's going on the forums on GitHub. And we'll see you next week.
Sounds great. All right, guys. That's the show. Take care now.